It starts like any other conflict: land, money, or pride. Gbemi thought she was just defending their farm, but when the harvest dies and shadows begin to speak, it's clear this battle isn't against man alone. Gbemi's refusal to sell her land sparks something far darker than a property dispute. So, what would you do if your whole world turned against you? Sit back, pay attention, and receive this powerful message. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the small Yoruba village of Oho. At the edge of the market, where cries of merchants and the tang of spices filled the air, young Gbemi stood beside a modest vegetable stall, eyes wide and alert. Her mother, Mama Gbenga, wiped the sweat from her brow as she stacked pepper baskets. "Gbemi, look there," Mama said, nodding towards a group of men approaching. Gbemi squinted, recognizing Tede, the smooth-talking landowner, flanked by his entourage. The ground beneath her seemed to tilt at his audacity. "So, Mama Gbenga," Tede said with an oily smile, "have you thought about my proposal?" Mama Gbenga's hands stilled. "I told you, Tade, my land is not for sale." Tade's grin faltered. "You know mixing business with stubbornness isn't wise. I have buyers. Cash. We could be friends." Gbemi felt something in her stir, a warning, like the rustle before a storm. Tede, it's not about friendship." Mama's voice was firm. "This land is our life. Without it, how will we survive?" Tade leaned closer, dropping his voice to a whisper just loud enough for Gbemi to catch. "Perhaps you need a little encouragement to reconsider. Things happen after all." As he turned away, Gbemi saw a flicker of something in Mama's eyes that made her heart skip. Fear. The next morning, as dawn painted the sky blush, Gbemi found her mother at the edge of their plot, kneeling. The land lay scattered, yam mounds destroyed, the ground bare as a bad omen. "Mama, what is this?" Gbemi asked, voice sharp with shock. Mama looked up, tears tracing her cheeks. "I don't know, Gbemi. This land is cursed." Gbemi clenched her fists, understanding. Tade's threat wasn't empty. It was a promise. The village buzzed with rumors. "It's Tade's doing," they whispered, glancing over shoulders. "He wants all the land, by any means." Gbemi's heart thundered as each step brought her closer to Tade's compound. She couldn't let this go. But when she saw the tall iron gate, her courage faltered. Inside waited the man who held her family's future crumpled in his greedy fist. "Ah, Gbemi, you alone today?" Tade's voice was like slick oil when she was finally let inside. His smirk was as insufferable as the afternoon heat. "You did this," she accused, laying the threat bare. Tade just smiled a serpent's smile. "Did what, my dear? I only provided an opportunity." "Enough!" Gbemi's voice rang out, drawing eyes. "You will leave our land alone. This is my vow." Tade laughed, a cruel and hollow sound. "What power do you have to stop me? Remember, favors come at a price." Gbemi turned sharply, marching out with a resolve as deep as her indignation. She wouldn't let this end so easily. Days passed, each heavier than the last. Mama Gbenga grew more withdrawn, shadows darkening under her eyes. Gbemi worked the stall and tried to stretch what little they sold, but hope dried quicker than their yam. When her uncle visited, bringing news of a spiritual healer in the next village, Mama dismissed it. "We have no money for charms." Yet that evening, Under stars that watched like silent judges, Gbemi put aside pride and sought the healer. The air inside the healer's hut was thick with smoke. "Why have you come?" the woman asked, her voice low, as if she knew already. "We are cursed. I need strength to fight it." The healer said nothing, only handed Gbemi a small pouch. "This is your spirit weapon." As Gbemi returned, a plan formed. She started sowing seeds anew, hidden in the veil of night, whispering prayers her grandmother had taught her. She thought of Teddy's face, of power shifting, of harvests returning. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Gbemi, my warrior." Harvest approached, but so did Tade, relentless like encroaching rain. "Last chance, Mama Gbenga. Sell and live in comfort." "After what you did," Mama said, holding her ground. Tade's smile was gone. "By next month you'll see. Hunger weakens even the strongest." When the harvest failed, devastation swept through the household. Gbemi watched Mama crumple under weight. Neither could bear alone. "We must leave, Gbemi," Mama whispered. "There's nothing left." Gbemi went to the market again, standing boldly before the elders gathered at the square. "Ogatade has gone too far," she spoke clearly. "He ruins what he cannot have. But we can unite." Murmurs grew, doubt and unrest whispering their own stories. Would anyone dare risk standing against Tade's influence? "Enough!" the head elder bellowed. "Bring him before us." Tade arrived, and his confidence was stark, unyielding. But as Gbemi held up the small pouch from the healer, the elders looked between it and Tade with suspicion. And just as Gbemi began to speak, a sudden shout rang out from the back of the crowd. A woman lurched forward, wild-eyed with Tade's false charms clutched in her hands, the very items used in deals that bound others like slaves. The crowd fell silent, the truth bared like a wound. The last words hung menacingly in the charged air, and in Gbemi's heart a fire lit. As the village watched, the foundation of Tade's power trembled. Just as Gbemi opened her mouth to forge a new path, the scene cut off abruptly, leaving the village on the cusp of a transformation they never saw coming. Every face reflected the same thought. They stood at the brink of a reckoning. The tension was as thick as the humid night air in Oho, as Gbemi stood before the elders and Tade. The pouch from the healer hung heavily in her hand as she prepared to speak the truth that weighed on her heart like a stone. As she opened her mouth, a voice cut through the silence, sharp and accusing. "This isn't just Tade's doing," shouted Moji, a woman from the crowd. Her eyes were wide, frantic. "It's the curses, the secrets we've hidden." Gbemi felt her heart lurch at the words, a tremor of fear and recognition spreading among the villagers gathered. "What do you mean, curses?" one of the elders demanded, his voice laden with skepticism. "Years of them," Moji replied, pointing a trembling finger at Tade. "He used them, twisted them. But we're all part of this. The old ways, the things whispered in the night." Gbemi looked around, unease bubbling in her gut as the villagers began murmuring, the weight of the past pressing down on them all. Something dark had seeped into the village, festering in silence. Tade's face darkened as his grip on his charm seemed to tighten. "The girl speaks of what she does not understand," he barked, but his voice carried a hint of desperation. From beside Gbemi, Mama Gbenga whispered, "We must pray." It was a plea entangled with doubt, the echo of hope diminishing in darkness. "Oluwa, guide us," Gbemi whispered, her heart begging for strength. But the silence of the village seemed louder than her whispered prayers. That night, nightmares ravaged the village, twisting sleep into turmoil. Gbemi tossed and turned as phantom shadows mocked her despair. She awoke with a jolt, sweat slick on her skin, echoes of laughter clinging to her consciousness. "Mama," she whispered in the darkness, seeking solace, yearning for light. But in the shadowed corner, Mama Gbenga lay still, the depth of her fatigue notches too deep. Faint cries echoed from somewhere far, a reminder of their bondage. Gbemi's resolve strengthened in the void. "We will overcome," she whispered, even though the walls mocked her faith. "I won't let go." The following morning, whispers cut through the village like blades. Fingers pointed, arguments flared. "It was her fault," someone spat, eyes on Gbemi's retreating back. "Her stubbornness brought all this upon us." Pain splintered through her heart as Gbemi kept walking, away from the accusing stares, Mama's frail figure watching her vanish down the narrow path towards the healer's hut. In the healer's abode, Gbemi knelt. "Please, help us," she pleaded. "I need to understand. How can we truly break free?" The elderly woman surveyed her with eyes like stormy waters. "Truth," she said, each word a pebble dropped in a silent pool. "Truth overcomes, but it's not an easy path." Gbemi took a deep breath. "We must face it," she admitted, feeling the weight, knowing what it would cost her family, her village. "Gbemi," a voice called as she emerged, the late afternoon shadows stretching like fingers across the earth. It was Pastor Ayo, a man once mocked for his unwavering faith. "Pastor," she greeted, hope flickering through the doubt. "Will you help us?" He nodded, sincerity gleaming in his gaze. "But first, we must confront this openly, pray, and renounce these ties." They turned towards the village, now a battlefield of spirits and resolve. Together, they would face the truth cloaked in shadows. The village square was uneasy as the villagers gathered once more. Pastor Ayo lifted his voice in low, firm prayer. "Olua, expose all hidden things, free us from bondage." As he began reading scripture, words dipped in power. Gbemi watched shadows writhe. Moji cried out, a guttural sound, and the village stared spellbound. Light seemed to contest the darkness within her. The grip of spiritual chains tightened around the crowd. But Gbemi stood firm, echoing the words, feeling the tension stretch thin as hope clawed against despair. Tada's laughter broke, a cruel sound contorting into something pitiful. "Do you think words will break what I built? This is power, girl. Power." But Gbemi countered with unyielding faith. "The word is sharper than any sword, Tade. Your powers are nothing before it." Beside her, Pastor Ayo's prayers reached an intensity the air itself dared not ignore. And in his name, every knee must bow. A cry tore from Moji as she relinquished her charm, tossing it into the fire. The village held its breath, the smouldering smoke spiraling into the heavens like an unspoken plea. Gbemi felt the shackles around her spirit begin to crumble as others followed suit, casting off the chains of fear and deception. Light trickled in, radiant beams piercing the dusty veil that clung to Ojo. A wind rushed through the square, leaves whispering the song of freedom. With unburdened hearts and trembling faith, the village knelt, voices lifted in prayerful unity. The grip of Tade's darkness shattered, falling away like dead leaves in the wake of true illumination. Tade stumbled back, his charisma gone, his deceptions laid bare. The villagers stepped away, their eyes now clear, unshackled. In the wake of restoration, silence fell like a benediction over the square. Tears mingled with dust as Gbemi knelt, her face raised toward the expanse above. "We serve a living God," she declared softly, echoing through the hearts around her. The crowd dispersed, hope lighting each path as they returned to their homes. Still, in the shadows, an older figure watched with narrowed eyes. The battle might be won, but the war was never over. In Oho, faith was both weapon and shield. Gbemi and Mama Gbenga shared a silent embrace back at their humble home, the weight of their trial a familiar ghost that now faded with each softly spoken prayer. "We keep trusting, Mama," Gbemi urged gently. "Together." Mama Gbenga nodded, her spirit gentler, touched by the grace of what they had endured. This lived lesson of faith would linger, the scars a testament to the light they had claimed through shadows. Weeks passed, seasons shifted, and the village of Oho breathed anew, the air now sweet with redemption. Hands that once wrought destruction now tilled hope into the earth, rebirthing life from charred soil. While an amber sun settled beyond the hills, Gbemi paused, her gaze drawn upward. Somewhere inside, she was waiting for another revelation, knowing that combining vigilance with faith would see them through. As twilight's curtain fell, Gbemi's heart whispered again, enkindled with awe, tempered by trials, and echoed gently into eternity. A reminder that even the fiercest darkness yields to nascent light when faith finds its voice. Thus ended one battle, with an eye upon the unseen horizon and a lesson etched ineffably upon their souls. God's power is real and his presence unwavering, shadowed now in their lives only by the wings of his promise. Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.